as everyone knows, and I say kinda, but instead he's fully left. So there's not been a replacement yet, and that means that there's also not someone who's going to do town halls. So we as a development team got to, and yeah, I'm getting the first PMs already, but we as a development team got together and decided to at least have some sort of community engagement. My inbox is open, so you can just PM me questions.
Carbine.
Otherwise, you can just start talking about the gun, because that's the first question I got.
A1, are we confirming its existence?
Neth already did, I thought, and Batson did.
Oh, well, in that case, sorry, I've got my roommates playing League of Legends in the background. So the M1 Carbine, it has been sprited. It does have visuals. Well, I say M1 Carbine because that's what I base the original visuals on. Although currently we're experimenting with different ideas on how to handle the visuals for it. The way the gun will actually handle in game, if I'm not mistaken, the way we wanted it to, the role we wanted to fill was sort of an intermediate between, say, specialist sniper loadouts and the M41. Kind of acting similar to the way the M41 sniper builds would work, with obvious changes. A1 Neth can probably talk more on it.
Well, Neff isn't here. I don't want to go into it too deep, but so far I like the idea. It's being coded. Are there any specific questions on it? Then you can PM. Okay, so here we have the first question. The game is called Colonial Marines, not Colonial Marines versus Xenos. Why don't you put other factions in? Let me start off by saying that the list that we made of stuff that we will deny is not only because stuff on the list, as it states, can still make it into the game. And certain stuff is just, we already have suggestions for it. If we are going to do it, then it's specifically already known. For example, we already know that we can revert features. We already know if we're going to put in another antagonist, what the other antagonist would be, or what the ideas were for it. So we're not putting other factions into rotation because, first of all, we're not currently, working on any of that. We're working on. And secondly, we also think that other factions should be special and mostly admin only. We might make those events more available, but yeah, that's it. Piachu, do you want to say anything?
Well, yeah, we're definitely working on making HVH appear more often / be easier to run by admins by streamlining everything. So over time, that may morph into a proper game mode sometime in the future, but it might be just like, Whiskey Outpost, where it's technically in, but, it's not available all the time. Well, we'll see what the community response will be at that point, but that's, possibly months away at the earliest.
I think that's a satisfactory answer to your question. So I'm going to go to the. Are you considering changing Alamo locking? Because at this point, a queen can just scream and lock the Alamo with very little to stop her, and the Marines are completely trapped. Piachu, do you want to answer?
Well, the short answer is yes. The longer answer is yes, but we're currently working on the cast rework, so I don't want to be impeding on Neff's call by changing what he's currently changing. So you have to bear with us a little bit longer, but yes, we're not satisfied with the current state of the lockdowns as they are.
Yeah, we don't like him either. you guys know what ammo the carbine will be using. I don't. Maybe Triodyne does, but I don't know if they can.
Yeah, I can't tell you if it's gonna be like 10 by fucking 36 millimeters or whatever, but we do have sprites for it that I have made. It takes a smaller box magazine. Again, it is an intermediate rifle. We're unsure what caliber it's going to be, and again, we still haven't fully decided on how it's going to fit into the Marine loadout lineup. We know we want it to be a primary weapon, but we're not sure on the damage statistics and how the ammunition is going to handle. But it will be its own unique caliber and set, so you won't be able to interchange ammunition between the M41 or, say, the M39.
Yes, with that, I'm going to move on to the next question. You can keep sending. Any news on the CO uniform from Trio?
Yeah, so the CO. Sorry. Hey, can you guys quiet down just a little bit? Thanks. Yeah, no problem. So with the commander uniform, as well as general whitelist sprites, such as the Predator in hands with the commie stick, those have been put. Those have been put on the back burner as there are more pending projects that are actually gameplay intensive and effective. And I know the commie stick is gameplay. It's a mechanical aspect of gameplay, but currently, since I just don't have enough spriters right now to do it, and we're working on too many other projects that are more pending, they're just going to have to wait, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that's the news on the CO uniform. Next up, why do you make a list of GitLab issues you will deny if you already know? I think I tried to explain it just now. Maybe Piachu can explain it a little bit better, or do I need to?
I mean, we have some master list of things we'll outright deny, but the list is maybe a little bit hard to put together because some things maybe bit wishy-washy, I suppose. Like, how would you put it, A1?
A lot of the things on the list, if we're gonna do it, these suggestions have been made, they've been discussed, and if we're gonna do it, we're gonna do it when we are gonna do it. The last discussion has just denied these things, so I think that we kind of put out a statement saying these suggestions we already know about, and suggesting them again doesn't help. Is that a bit clearer, Piachu?
Yeah, I guess so.
Certain marine things, shotgun ammo in Bibles, webbings on G8s, etc., which allow much more carrying space than normal, up to 9 max on the G8 using webbing method. Is there a chance these things will be changed in the future? Let's start with that. Yeah, as much as I hate to say this, I would say if you encounter these things, GitLab them, because they're certainly not in. And if we know about them, they will be fixed. You can just report them as a bug. Is there anything you would like to add, Piachu or Trioda?
Nope.
I wasn't even aware you could put webbing in G8s. I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, that's the first time I hear about it as well, but I don't like the G8. Also, on the subject of different factions, will there ever be events where the Marines are a HV in a? What do you mean with events where Marines are in a humans versus?
You're cutting out.
Sorry, it says HVX. That's humans versus Xeno. Okay, yeah. So where it's humans versus Xeno, but UPP or CLF or another. Well, we have to at least try the colony events. I wasn't there for it, but from I got told that there were. Do you know about?
I mean, I've seen that round a little bit, and yeah, I guess we could look into the possibility of spawning Xeno during some HVH / pitting Xenos against UPP. And yeah, that would be just some custom events. So once we figure out how to run those events more smoothly, we probably could figure out how to turn Marines off and turn something else on instead, and add some Xenos around and play like that. But that's, I think, hasn't been discussed before all that much. So yeah, we'll keep that in mind.
I'm currently out of questions after 15 minutes, so feel free to send.
I can add something a little more to humans versus Xenos versus humans, if I'm not mistaken. Nightmare crops, as we call them, with survivor groups of antagonist factions such as UPP or, say, CLF or even PMCs from Wayland have been considered for some maps, although that's very, very far down the line, but that has been considered for normal gameplay elements.
Okay, the next question is on the subject of Nightmare. Why is Nightmare on Prison taking so long? 1 month ago, I saw it in action, and even though it had its issues, it was. I'm not sure if we can go into this. Do we want to go into this?
I mean, is that Nev's project?
It is Nev and my project, but yeah, let's put it on this. Like, you know what Cake is going to add, right? I don't think that this is a big deal to say at all. Okay, the thing that we're going to add in is a map merge tool, so that it's easier for us on the backside to merge maps in. So it's just for development, but it does mean that all our maps have to be adjusted, and we're basically waiting for that.
Yeah, we've got a big improvement on the map, so anything map related is currently really on hold.
Indeed, yeah. Is it possible to have voice activation to ask questions? Yeah, if one of the Discord staff is in here, then they can certainly do that. Hold on. And none of them are in here, so I just send a ping to them. It should be coming.
If you have sprite questions, you can also delegate those to me in private messages or A1. I'm happy to talk about the visual state of Colonial Marines and what I intend to do with it in the future.
I first have like three, 4 questions again. So, hey, I pose this in general. The UCSMC uses 9mm 0.44, 10 times 24, 10 times 28, 20 times 20, A19, and all of the assorted different specialist weapons. Why do we need yet another ammo tab for the carbine, which means a shorter main battle rifle? I'm not part of the process to choose what ammo I am of opinion that it should also take the M41A ammo, the 10 times 24, because normal carbines also use the same ammo, but I would give it different, or magazines. I don't exactly know the difference. Maybe try it out.
It might also be a little bit of a balance thing that you couldn't interchange the ammo between different guns. So you couldn't say take pulse rifle ammo, unload it into a pile, and then load it back into cartridges just to have your carbine, ammo casing, I guess. That's at least from a game developer perspective, but
I have two questions here. One is from Karlak saying, "Is Sprite your favorite soda?" The answer is no. My favorite drink is apple juice. And I've got one question here from Danger. He says, "Your sprites are nice. Are there any sprites you plan on reworking?" And yes, currently all legacy sprites inherited from Bay or TG are in the process of being reworked. Right now, I am actually working actively on removing all of the old headsets, as well as making special headsets for all command staff and encryption keys in the CM style. Trauma kits, splints, and fire kits are also being reworked. And I think that's it for now. Turfs and legacy turfs will get some love in the future. Currently, we're waiting on switching our turfs to an overlay system, so it's easier to work with them. But the rocks on Big Red and LV will be replaced with something that looks much nicer and more CM, and not something right out of asteroid mining from old TG.
Any plans for veteran squad? A squad only for players who are experienced and don't want to play with newer. Yeah, I don't have plans for that. It hasn't been discussed in the team at all. I can give my personal opinion on it. I think the Pier 2 and Trio9 can also do it. I'm also going to say that I'm quite sure that all our opinions on it will be kind of the same.
Well, I don't think we want to be promoting elitism around here. We want people to mingle. We want, the newbies to be working with all the players to learn from them, and also to have a little bit of balance between all of the squads. So you won't have just one squad that's, all Anga wants to, just charge in because they know what they're doing, and everyone should just be, supporting them. We want it to be more, a little bit more random, perhaps a little bit more spread out. So you have 4 squads that you can use anywhere. Well, maybe minus Delta that you always want to put on the front lines because that's what they want, I guess.
Also, it is currently in the rules, at least, ruled as forbidden to create a 5th squad with only veterans, because it means that the new players will always get FOB duty or whatever, and that's just no fun for them. That's kind of why those choices. The Texas guy is here. Yeah, I've noticed. He sent me the question for the permission to talk to Sen. I'm going to quickly check on the status. Okay. Piachu?
Yeah.
Can you check the soft chat and do what MX?
Let's see.
I couldn't find Rex Texas in the list, so it might be on my end.
I think he left.
It's Texicus.
Is he in the chat? He says, pressing business elsewhere, my bad. Apologies, good sir. Related to an earlier question, is it possible for there to be event rounds and or game mode centered around the UPP or CLF, replacing the CM?
Well, that will be a little bit hard considering that a lot of the prep arrays focused on Almayer. So unless you want to have some game mode where the UPP has taken over the Almayer, so on, that would be harder. Plus, we're also dealing with ID permissions that are really important for everything that's going on. So there's a lot that have to be reworked, but maybe in the future will be out of the question. That's probably once we're, again, established being able to do HVH rounds more easily, as in being able to spawn the other factions. Then maybe we can look into, humans versus Xenos with humans being UPP, CLF, or something. But again, that might be a bit hard.
Yeah, I think that's an adequate answer. I suppose to ask questions here. Yes. How many more devs are you planning to allow in?
Dean has a plan for that. He hasn't revealed to us yet. Yeah, that's a Dean question. We can't really answer that one.
I can answer in general more. We want to expand.
If you want to be a developer, please apply. We are looking for more developers. And spiders and mappers and all the good stuff.
Will the M37 and the M39 eventually get the underslung grenade launcher? And if not, what's the reason? Well, I don't think that they will, and I think the reason behind it is that the attachments, I think someone had the thought behind them that it's a real attachment and that those guns don't have a rail, but I know nothing about guns. So I hope that Triodyne or PHU can tell me why this wouldn't be feasible in real life.
I don't really know that much about guns, so if someone asks me that we should be putting those in and has a reason for it, we can consider it. Gameplay wise, I don't know.
I mean, I think it certainly boils. I mean, if you go real world, you can find attachments for any firearm that do just about anything. You can put a rail scope on pretty much anything you want in real world. I mean, you've probably all seen pictures of those horribly outmodded Glocks. It's more of a gameplay decision than it is a let's be as realistic as possible decision. Because if we were as realistic as possible, then, well, it wouldn't really be a game. It'd be a simulation, and that wouldn't be fun. So, again, it's a balance issue, although I wouldn't call it an issue because we hadn't really considered underslung grenade launchers on M39s and smaller arms. I suppose that would just be a question for later marine rebalances or things in the works. We have not considered that, or attachments on other weapons. I know in the past QFAs used to be on weapons, but those were removed again for balance reasons. It's not so much realism, as I said before, but I will repeat for the 50th time, it's a balance reason, probably from the past.
With that, I'm going to go on to the next question. Will the current lack of rounds where DEFCON 3 and lower have been achieved, is there any talk about changes? Short answer, yes, there is talk about change. Longer answer, this is not really a secret, but objective code is very specific. You need to trigger stuff in exact right order and such. And without looking at the variables, it's very hard for a person to know what they have to do to achieve an objective.
Yeah, I mean, we've inherited the objective code from Spooky, and it's been early development version / first working prototype, roughly. So it's a functional code, but it wasn't maybe finished all the way. It wasn't fully implemented. It wasn't a fully fledged feature. Spooky was saying that, well, this is the first iteration. There will be more to come, and then unfortunately he left the team. So we'll have to, of course, be taking that over, updating it. But currently we're just working with that code. yes, we want low defcons to be reached more often. At the same time, we don't have content for DEFCON 1, so we don't expect you guys to want to reach that yet. So that's a little bit of balance in that regard. Like, gives us a little bit more time to develop, the nukes and what have you. And yeah, over time, we'll be introducing more objectives that will help you guys reach the lower levels. Also, we'll be revamping how the objectives are calculated, perhaps, so it doesn't have to be an exact percentage, maybe just some flat point number that you have to reach. So we're tweaking that system, we're tweaking it slowly, things will come, and yeah.
Will we get squadless pure gray armor as a standard? You cannot get that because you need to be not assigned to a squad to get that. So all squad marines get one in the color of their squad. It's an overlay and it's coded.
Yeah, it's for usability that you have to have your squad colors on because you're a squad marine, you're not some generic person, what have you. This is your job, this is your assignment and so on. However, there are some things coming in regards to a little bit of customization for the armor, at least being able to pick some different armors for yourself. So if you want your armor with the skull on that will still have your squad color on, I think that will be an option soon.
Yeah, we want to make all the armors choosable. So you set in your settings what armor variation you want. And if you go to the vendor, you get that armor vendor variation. But that's
slightly different.
would placing a crit T3 on the ERT shuttle with weeds and sending it off to Elmir to deny a T3 slot for the rest of the round be again. Well, start off by saying we are the development team, not the staff. Technically, only head of staff can rule on rulings publicly, even though other staff have to do it in game. Is there any staff here that cannot? Yeah, I'm going to refer you to the forums. We have a rule topic on the forums. You can specifically ask on the.
Don't crit Xenos die off weeds?
It says with weeds.
With weeds, then wouldn't they regenerate? Well, I guess. Yeah.
But that would be outside of the LB.
I can go and ask for a ruling about that.
Well, now the Xenos are generated at
Also,
any level.
This is like a very fringe thing that could happen.
Very specific thing.
Because the only people that can actually move Xenos would be synthetics, and the chance of a Xeno falling into crit on the Alamo, and then it being sent up and contained, just so astronomically low that I couldn't see this being.
I'll tell you, if you do it as a Xeno to another Xeno, then yeah, it's definitely being a. I think we can leave it at that. We message you for question, yes? Yes, you do. Any chance of getting musical instruments? I do mapping, but it's not something that is on my list of mapping things to do. Maybe another mapper wants to say this, but you could always get. Piachu, what do you think?
So asking about musical instruments, where?
On the planet maps, extra instruments like a violin or.
I mean, I don't see any reason why not. It's up to the mapper to put them there, really. If it fits the map, if it fits the team, sure.
So yeah, I would get that, but that's the fastest way. Okay. The last question that I'm not gonna read, like not the one that I just got in, but the one before that. I'm also low in questions, so feel free. It's possible to someday have the .45 as an option alongside with the 9mm pistol on the regular. I might code it in that it's vendorable in the special vendors but in the regular marine vendors, no, because they should be special, like very special, and it's a special item. And you mean the rechambered variant of the normal pistol item? Pier 2, what do you think about?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember which pistol it is, but yeah, if it's some sort of more niche pistol, then yeah, I guess it should be staying where it is, unless we have some reason to add it everywhere. I don't know.
It's the 45 AC.
I think that the general consensus is we do not have an issue with them.
Yeah, I mean, all the power to them. If they, can develop their own code of hours, sure. Hey, we're not stopping them. Is I think that happens.
Indeed, yeah, but in general, it's yeah. Sorry, I have to reply to Dean real quickly. In general, it's not a huge issue. They are out there, but I think that they're going on a different path. Both Corporate Mercenary and TGMC. We do not have an issue with them. Maybe they've got an issue with us, but we do the things our own way. And in general,
yeah, like sometimes it's interesting to watch people playing like the corporate mercenaries. What all the shenanigans that go on there, but I absolutely don't play it. And I think our strength here is in the team that we have here, the staff and everything. So I don't expect many people to leave us, even if the code was leaked more or stuff like that all the time. People stay here for the community. People stay here because we're a well-maintained server. So it's not just in the code.
Yes. Next is, as a follow-up on the question about musical instruments, we had them on at one point, and they were removed because people got tired of hearing music in the middle of a fight. I get that point where medium role play, a lot of stuff we have, but people abuse it or it's considered unfun for another reason, and does it get? That's part of the game.
Yeah, there needs to be balance in everything, really.
Is it known that marine friendly fire is more devastating than getting hit by Xeno? And with new players being more bold, are there any plans to reduce the consequences of marine? Yes, there are plans that would influence marine friendly fire, but that's about all that I can.
I mean, I looked in the code. There are some small precautions against friendly fire already in there, but we want to. I guess a little bit. We want this game to have consequences. Like, yes, you can go and shoot over your buddies just to get that Xeno, but if you shoot your buddy there, well, it's something you have to deal with. Within
Hello.
reason.
I am a bit late. Work carried over a little longer than I was expecting, so apologies for my tardiness, but I am.
Yay!
Who is fielding questions?
A1.
Good. Please don't let me interrupt.
Yeah, and it's also funny because if you talk about nerfing marine weapons in general, then there's a group of players that just start saying about how deadly the weapons are, and it's often also the same group who complains about the friendly. If friendly fire gets less, then likely Xenos are also affected, that Xenos being harder to kill, because almost anything that would reduce friendly fire damage, would also reduce your damage versus.
Yeah, I mean that's the main reason why we can't just disable friendly fire entirely. Then you have just a ball of Marines going into the hive, shooting like in 3-4 lines and obliterate everything. So it's a little bit of a balance as well. We want the firing line to be one Marines deep / adding some small guns to the back of it. We don't want it to be inconsequential.
And we at one point had made a mechanic for a test. If you did the help intent shuffle, you couldn't fire for a second. But Marines, people really didn't like that. And in general, it stops, while I wouldn't say all of the friendly fire, but a good portion of it. But people just didn't like it because it doesn't feel natural. And it causes more issues than it's worth, even though the idea behind it I would find pretty good.
Well, trigger discipline.
Yeah, and I do at one point want to try and reduce the amount of grenades that go off in briefing, and I didn't know how yet, but definitely.
I mean, that's just griefing.
And no, it's also people who pick them up and double click.
Well, we could, I don't know, disable grenades for the first 15-20 minutes of the round, I guess.
Anything we do like that is very kludgy, and I think the mod team generally does a pretty good job of healing everyone who gets hurt in those kinds of things, or those kinds of situations. When it comes to actual grief, that's not really our problem. We have like mass healing tools and so forth for that kind of thing, and when it's an accident in the rec line, like a couple people get hurt, they get healed, move on, the guy gets a note, whatever. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's when people are friendly firing with grenades in the field, in the middle of a combat, that it's the problem. FF in general, we've discussed at prior dev meetings. Currently, A1 is fielding questions. Anyway, we've discussed a few ideas to deal with IFF. We have not decided or confirmed or started working on any of these. These were just things we thought of. Namely, making throwing grenades go past the first human mob that matches your faction. So, like, if you're standing behind someone, you can throw a grenade over their head. That was an idea we had. We had ideas involving situational IFF, where you can't shoot someone of your own faction if you're on help intent and they're on help intent and you're adjacent to each other. Things like that. Setting up firing lines intentionally, where you've got 2 Marines and the one in front is on walk intent, could be a thing. It's all things we've thought about, and they'll have their upsides and downsides. But like A1 said, just reducing the actual damage that weapons deal isn't really a solution. It just makes the problem muted.
Okay, let's go to the next question. There's one thing that all Marines hate, and it's when this drone runs up to you and just plants a hugger on your face. What will be done to stop this horrible?
Just shoot the drone?
I do get how horrible hugger combat is. My personal opinion is that I don't like it. I think that most of the devs agree on this.
Mm-hmm. I will say that I personally hate hugger combat. I've hated it since when I first joined, late 2015. I still hate it today. We have had some ideas on how to manage removing it without... The key is removing it without making carriers, and to a lesser extent drones, useless. We've had some ideas, like you can put them on nested Marines, or you can put them on stunned Marines, or Marines that are laying down for any reason. These all have problems, such as, a queen screeching, and now everyone is hugged, which is still already a thing. But it would become worse, as that becomes the only way to face hug people. You'll probably see more on that whenever we do plan to refactor armor in a certain fashion. I can't go into details now because we don't have details hammered out. But that and neurotoxin being reworked and a few other small things all lumped together, you'll probably see an end to hugger combat at that point. I can't think of a single dev that wants it to stay in its current state, let me put it that way.
Yes, and I think with that we can go to the next question. Why aren't new features voted on instead of just being implemented willy-nilly? But I do get a bit what this is coming from, but no server has, as far as I know, an effective system like. And a lot of features that are being voted on, in my opinion, not everything makes the game better. It might make perfect sense to you, but there's just stuff that no one wants to code, perhaps. So you can suggest it, but no one wants to code it. Or there's just stuff that is very personal, like I've got the suggestion for a profanity filter 3 times. Yeah, no.
No, just no.
Plus, like, we also have, if we be general voting, then we might have a little biased opinions, like, oh, if majority of our players play as Marines, then we'll have more Marine favorable things being pushed and voted.
Yeah,
so we have
statistically, Marine is much more popular than Xeno, just based on population numbers.
Yeah, so we're probably a lot more open to hearing suggestions from like the council, which are more vetted players, let's say, and they represent larger groups, and we can also like filter them a little bit. But if we wanted to go that route, we'd have to have some sort of Xeno council to represent the Xeno side of things, and so on, so on. So
Yes.
that might not be necessarily feasible.
Your feedback and suggestions, as long as they are constructed in a manner we can actually understand, is obviously it's valued, but we cannot allow the player base at large to directly make decisions because they will make decisions out of self-interest. It's just a thing that will occur. People who prefer Marine over Xeno, even if they play both, very heavily outnumbered Xeno players.
I'm going to go on. To add to the festering pile of bad questions, at any point will rec ammo be changed? According to the wiki, the only chance to get .45 ammo is the surplus or heaven forbid black. It's very specialty ammo, and the contents of crates is also not really going to be changed in the. So I'm going to go with a no on this. Maybe someone else here wants to say, yeah, I'm going to do.
We're more likely to phase out the 45 than we are to support it. It's not that much better than the standard M4 A3. And it doesn't take special ammo types. So
then, along with that, will we ever get a pistol variant of the .44 weapon to contrast the KT and the M4? It's also not been discussed in any way, and I think it's also a bit low on the standpoint. We're very hesitant to add new weapons anyways. The carbine is already kind of an exception to this, but we are hesitant to add weapons because, in general, new weapons, in my opinion, is not what makes the game fun.
Yeah, a new weapon will have some novelty for the first couple of weeks, and then people will put it on their list of, what is better than what, and if it isn't the best weapon to use at a given time, it will mostly just not get used except by baldies. Look at the revolver for an example of this.
Will we ever get a hollow point variant of the M39 or the M4A1? It's also quite novelty. Hollow point isn't used already, even for the pistols, effectively no one. So I'm also not afraid to give this a.
Yeah, we're more likely to focus on existing weapons and bring them up to speed, like the M44, like we did with the M39, to make them a viable alternative, or at least just not completely useless as a weapon. rather than add whole new ones that we then have to compare to the others.
Then the last of this list, more masks like squad-colored face bandanas.
I don't have any intention to add more quality of life sprites or customization options to Marines at the moment. I know Monkey did do cigarettes, and he's working on getting those into vendors for everybody. But at the moment, we just have more pending projects. So all those suggestions I will promptly put into a trash can that I will open and empty later to review. But right now, no. We're not doing anything visual-wise for Marines customization. There might be work on uniforms for earlier or newer projects, but nothing customization-wise.
Yeah, I will mention that I know Monkey wants to do some in the future, so he will probably be the one working on like new headbands and stuff like that, new things you can put on your helmet. He likes the small little detail-oriented stuff, but we have some larger, more pressing things to work on at the moment. So.
How likely will it be that the quickfire attachment will be attachable to the new carbine being made by NEF? And has NEF/the dev team considered its attachment to the M39 or the M41A pulse rifle in a Nerf door? We would love to see it back on those guns because currently it's one of the least attachable. But in general, without addressing the underlying issues, it won't be coming.
Yeah, if we were to allow it in its current state on rifles, especially, it would be just as ridiculous as it was back when you could do it before all of the weapon changes. Especially considering our recent buff to rifles in general. I put one on a smart gun for fun in the Thunderdome, and it was also completely ridiculous. So it would need to be toned down. We might have to do, if we were to allow it would probably have a dynamic buff so that things that already fire quickly don't fire, with an additive method. It would be multiplicative up to a certain curve. A soft cap on how fast you can shoot, so that it's still worth getting, but is not patently ridiculous.
Can I marry Dean? Well, Dean.
Well, I am single.
Well, there you got your answer. Is gay marriage legal where?
I live in the United States, so by federal law, yes.
Will laser cannons from CAS/Fire Mission be buffed anytime? I can say that they will be changed, but buffed, I don't think necessarily it might.
The laser cannon, Neth, I believe you talked about making it be an area effect of some kind?
I thought it was also going to be rechargeable, so it would be infinite ammo if you took it, but I'm not. I would say wait for the CAS rework and afterwards try it.
Yeah, it's definitely a Nef question.
Do you mind if Dean fields the questions as your mix keeps cutting out? I'm going to do one last question in my inbox, and I'm going to say send Dean questions now then, because
yeah, that's fine.
I'm almost out anyway.
Let me make sure my settings aren't set to friends only. Yeah, okay, should be good.
Question for the development town hall. When will we having the staff officer.ogg MIDI as lobby?
Someone link it in town hall text so I have some context, because I don't recall that specific MIDI.
That was the last question I had, so send them to Dean now.
Yes.
I said send them to Dean.
Artemis asks, should I shotgun a beer before this next round? I don't see a reason why I'm... Yes, sure, why not? My tragically empty inbox speaks volumes of how many questions are left.
Well, Dean, I know we had a question. Someone's asking how big of a development team are we looking to have? And we didn't answer that because that's mostly your question. So
that is a good one. I do have a plan that I've discussed with the team in general terms already. I will say that my total intended size of code staff specifically is about 18 people. It's a good, wholesome number, and then a number of spriters, mappers, etc. on top of that. So probably maximum size by the end of the year is about 30. I know that seems like a high number, but bear in mind the mod team is like almost 60 now, if not already past. There's another question from I don't know who, because I'm being fielded the ones that A1 is receiving instead of me. Will we get a new Vice host? I don't know. That's not entirely up to me, and I will say that I haven't been involved in any significant discussions on choosing one with Jamie and Emerald. We're seemingly doing just fine with 3 heads rather than 4, and we will probably continue to do that until we come up with a need. Another question was, can you change point blanking? Context? Like, what do you want to change? Whoever's question that was, ask me that. I'll move on to the next one while you figure that out. Will more food be added? We actually have a lot of food in the code already. It's definitely not a top priority to add more food, because like it's food. It doesn't really do anything. But if you're clever on certain maps, especially Big Red, and work with the corporate liaison, you can grow some interesting stuff from the seed vendors on the planet. You've got to get, the various chemical vendors and the seed vendor and drag them up to him, but he can help you out. He's got a mini hoe, and that's very important for hydroponics stuff. All the old base station botany code is still in there. It works. We branched off just after Zuhair imported his bioballistic delivery system, so if you've managed to take Hydro on Big Red or something, go ham. Try not to kill everyone with vines, but other than that, go ham. I will say that we don't have a wiki entry for the food recipes, as far as I'm aware. Feel free to make one as you experiment with things. Another question, will we ever be getting joke items for the Marine side, aka a horribly underpowered gun? I mean...
Take your pick.
You already have the M44, so...
Yeah, it's kind of a joke item right now. I wish it wasn't, but grab yourself 2 of those, and you'll hit nothing, but it's really funny. Make macros to shout yeehaw or something similarly stereotypical.
I don't know, go knife main.
Yeah, you've got throwing knives, because of how thrown objects work, are literally incapable of finishing off a Zeno because you can't hit something that's laying down. So there's a joke item for you. Pat yourself on the back if you actually manage to knock something into crit with one. Will we ever get one of those little behind-the-scenes films? I assume you mean in the context of how the game is made, like how we do our dev work, and I'll say probably no, because it's very boring. It's...
I do have something to say on that. In regards to sprite my apologies. In regards to sprite processes, any big updates that I intend to push, I will probably be making a forum post that breaks down the design process that has gone into the new items and or redesigned items, and why we or I think they should be that way in regards to the CM style.
I will say for sprites specifically, because they are something that you will see immediately when a feature is released. As long as the sprites that feature is for are not part of someone else's project, are not a secret thing that we're holding off on until it's time for release, like say uniform sprites, things like that. I welcome our spriters to stream what they are drawing as they draw it and gather feedback in real time if they so choose. I know there's a lot of art streams on Twitch and stuff. Feel free to do that if you want. Please don't bother devs to do that if they don't want to, but the same obviously cannot be said for coders and mappers. It's a bit more private, but sprites are their own thing on that one. How is the dev dungeon doing? It's great. I've added another 3 floors and 14 more scythe blade traps. It's fantastic. What changes will be made for the body block feature for the xenomorphs, as body blocking is the death of many younger T1 casts, and body blocking crushers is a easy cheese strat. Body blocking, especially the tier 3 body block standing stun mechanic, is a very, say, controversial feature that I personally don't agree with. I feel like it's a bit of a band-aid for a larger problem that is high-tier Xenos, especially Crushers, not having a way to physically push Marines away that are trying to body block them. I will say that I don't want Marines to be able to win a body block fight. And I do think that young Xenos should really be able to have some means of moving past each other more effectively. But it is a Beyond thing. It's an SS13 thing. The help intent shuffle is a very, very old problem. I don't know of anywhere that has really solved it, so to speak. It's mostly a problem in choke points, which is to be expected. Body blocking crushers, we've had some ideas for that, namely making the stomp physically push Marines that are adjacent to it away. Something like that, you know, giving them some kind of ability to make a hole for themselves, just not constantly. And I will say that I don't want Marines to successfully win a help intent fight, or, you know, a shove fight against a T3, because they're like 3 times as big as you are, and that doesn't make any sense, and would be terrible for gameplay. So, if anyone has any other comments on body blocking, we'll move on to the next question. I know that especially the T3 body block is a very controversial topic. No? Okay. Spartan Bobby asks, hey Dean, what does the hard target trait do? Well, that's completely unrelated, but I'll answer it anyway. Hard target is a talent, not a trait, that makes enemies suffer a -20 penalty to their ballistic skill test to hit you whenever you charge a run. For those who are unaware, I'm not going to give context to that, because I find it fun. Next question. I've heard a few times about how most mappers are working on their own thing. How many different maps are currently in development? As the mappers that would have an answer to that question are not present, I'm going to skip them for now. More on that later. You'll know when there's a new map being made. We are very likely to, you know, produce art spoilers, things of that nature. And once we've done our internal testing on any map, it becomes ready to go for public tests. If you've seen how we've handled Trident Dam so far, the future ones are probably going to go a lot like that. What are the chances of donations coming back? I've poured a ridiculous amount of time into CM and want to donate some money. If for some reason server costs become unmanageable, if we, for whatever reason, open a second server, need extra hardware, and we figure out the legal requirements for going over a certain amount of undeclared income, that's the main problem, is taxes, not anything else. We will probably open them. We see no reason to open donations for no reason. If we need money for something, we will open it until we can afford that thing, and then we will close them again. Other SS13 servers and really, you know, community-run servers like Minecraft and Terraria and so forth have a very nasty history of piling up donation funds that go nowhere, while openly stating that they are going to something related to the server, and then eventually someone walking off with it. And that is the exact situation we are trying to avoid. We don't want to, have a controversy like Best RP did with PureLec, where one of the heads is buying video games and pizza with donation funds. That's morally and ethically wrong. Can we have DE Dust as a map? Trident Dam is a desert, but DE Dust is a bit too small for CM, I think. Seeing as it's built for, 10 people or whatever. I haven't played Counter-Strike in a while. If it's not been asked, are there plans to work on / change the Burrower? Oh, this is a good one. I've played a few rounds with it since a long pause, and I've genuinely felt like the only good abilities it had were wasting the time of Praetorians and Boilers, and I should have been a drone instead. Okay. I believe Piachu, this one's mostly in your court here.
Well, the Borrower recently got the buff to the tunneling network, which is really nice, like from what I've tested. Other than that, we're looking into making the Borrower more self-sufficient, so it will be able to fill its own traps, and also have other friends that can help it fill traps. And the quality of what you put in traps will be reflected by that. So yes, things are coming. I think they're ready to merge. Maybe after this talk, we'll talk with Dean and see how that goes. And yeah.
Yep. That's about it on that one. For those not aware of the new tunneling system, every single tunnel entrance is connected to every other tunnel entrance. You climb in, and then I believe you alt-click to get out, and you can see what is around you before you exit. So there's no more going to a tunnel and you don't know whether or not it's open, or if there's a claymore and an engineer standing there with a buckshot and a cigar. It's always a cigar. Kaneem asks, has Neth decided whether or not the carbine he's implementing will get its own holster, fit inside of the current M39 holster, or go on marine backs? No. Wait, is Neth here? Oh no! I don't know the answer to that one. I'm not sure. Ask Neth later. Another question. Does all the devs play CM on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to understand non-dev players' frustrations and enjoyment of the game? More than that, I encourage my team, everyone on my team, regardless of whether they're a junior or on the chopping block to become a senior, even myself, to play at least a round a day. More if possible, but considering that the rounds are pretty healthily on average an hour and a half, and the time we have to spend actually working on things, more than one round a day typically isn't feasible, especially because most of us either are in our mid-20s and have a job, or are younger than that but go to college and thus have a job that doesn't pay us anything. So we do play. I will say we play a lot more than devs used to. It's very much on purpose. It's part of why January and December have been such strong months for the dev team in terms of total output and correcting things that players want. So, like the cast rework alone and the mechanics in there is something I know players have wanted for a really long time and executed better than the suggestions for it were to begin. What's the status on special weapon supplies as a DEF CON reward?
Well, I think I asked the command council to propose what weapons to add in there. They have a topic in their secret forum part for all the commanders to make suggestions and so on. And I'll be looking at that when I'll have a little bit more free time. And so if you have any guns that we currently have in the game that you want to see as DEFCON rewards, please post theirs, make your suggestions, because I don't know which of our guns are good and which are trash, how much you should be putting in them. So yeah.
There's talk of making versions of the specialist kits that exist on Whiskey Outpost, making a version of that doesn't require you to be a specialist. Things of that nature are definitely on the table. I mean, DEF CON rewards are very powerful. They are your mid-round power boosts. They are the answer to the snowball effect that Xenos tend to have because they power up as they age, and if you're doing your objectives, so will you. You can get respawns, ERTs of people coming out of cryo, things like that. Cast points, cargo points, all kinds of stuff. So we do have some ideas in mind for other things that are a lot more complicated and therefore need testing before I can even talk about them. Some of our concepts on that are running into problems with Beyond itself, and so I don't want to make any promises that I don't know if I can actually keep. But DEF CON rewards are definitely something to go to your Commander Council representative about and feed suggestions through that way, because they will talk about them amongst themselves, amongst the whitelisted COs, gather people who play the game a lot. And I will say that I won't say that council members are more likely to have their suggestions put in, but we do tend to take a little more time out of our day to listen to them. Because people who are on the councils are, if nothing else, very experienced players who have been around a while. Have you guys considered a way for specs to replace their guns if they get lost/melted? It can be frustrating, considering how rare spec rounds are. Well, I will say that we're going to make spec guns not melt, so that doesn't solve that problem. It only solves the melting part. But if you drop your gun, if you lose your weapon, it's because you got captured or stunned or badly FF'd and someone took it. All of which I would say is just part of the game. But melting them, yeah, we can fix that one for sure.
I mean, we could add some sort of expensive requisition crate with replacement guns, but how often would those be taken, really?
And then there's the problem of, the guy goes down there with 2 grenade launchers, entirely so that he doesn't have to reload the first one as often in situations like that.
If you want to be wasting requisition points, something like that, guess.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
That is more viable with the requisitions rework changes, because then you're not having to spend all your points on staples. But can we get DEF CON katanas? I mean, if that's what you want, you're not gonna get the absurdly sharp katana because that one's a joke weapon for admins to spawn. But and actual katanas are not that much stronger than a machete. I rarely see a round where requisitions runs out of machetes. So my immediate answer is just use a machete. Works fine. Okay, question. There's a few SS13 ports by now, like Unity Station, that are coming along quite decently. You think CM would ever be ported to one of those? Probably not. At least as far as, this is my personal opinion here, not necessarily the dev team as a whole, but there has not been a successful SS13 remake that has all of the same content, level of complexity, and so on, because porting something from the awful language that is DM into something else is a nightmare of manual changes, manual copying and adjusting and adopting.
I mean, I guess from the developer perspective, unless something like Unity Station comes up with a tool that takes your DM code and mathematically turns it into Unity code by itself without that much dev input, say, then it might be something to consider. But that's really, really hard to implement.
Yeah. I have seen, because I've been around the SS13 community for an unreasonable amount of time, I have seen at least a dozen attempts by individuals or groups of people, rarely more than a dozen in size, try to port it, and they just don't have enough manpower. They just never have enough people. It's like trying to port, to a limited extent, Dwarf Fortress, if you're familiar with that one. The game has existed in some fashion since the early 2000s. The platform itself is basically RPG Maker from the mid 90s. That the game works at all is a miracle. And moving everything and having it, you could have a game that has all the same kinds of mechanics. Barotrauma is a game that is very similar to SS13 in its look and feel, and it directly references it all over the place. But it's not the same. It doesn't have the same feel. Part of the aesthetic, for lack of a better term, of SS13 is how clunky it is, how much of an intense learning curve there is at first, and then once you get the basics down, it's just this intense open world of stuff to explore and figure out and have fun with. If I could go back and forget everything I know about CM and just learn SS13 all over again, I'd totally do it, because exploring the game is really fun. And it's really, really hard to build something like that from the ground up. Anyway,
I guess if you want a more real-world example, you should look into Yandere Dev Diaries, because it's a game that's been developed in Unity in, I think, JavaScript or something like that, and the developer were looking into converting it to C# code, also in Unity. So you're converting from one engine to the other. And the reason why they didn't do that is because, like, basically they had to stop development on new features for half a year just to focus on converting what's already in there, keep it intact, just have the same expectations they can continue working on it in C#. So it would be similar if we were trying to convert anything. We'd have to stop our development, code freeze, go from there, and spend years and years of just converting the code piece by piece.
Yeah. Okay. Oh boy, a whole bunch of questions from someone. All right, let's shoot through these. Have you ever made a major OB fuck up? Me personally, no. Have I seen tons of them, and have I almost done it? Yeah. I find them really funny. It's terribly unfortunate for everyone who gets bombed. But there's something disgustingly satisfying about seeing like 8 people gib at the same time, or burn alive. I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is. However, it is just as funny when I see 2 boilers and a RAV explode from an OB because they weren't paying attention, so take that as you will. Will there be an alternative underbarrel attachment for the M44? As it stands, due to the laser sight being the only one for the gun and it having 0 drawbacks, it is less of a side raid and more of a straight upgrade. Yeah, laser sight itself is kind of a minor upgrade, but we're gonna get to the M44 eventually. It's basically a joke right now. We're gonna fix it. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what underbarrel attachments I would put on a revolver, but we'll get there. I mean, at least you can shove a bayonet on it. I know that's not underbarrel, but still, where else would it technically attach? Is it true that Beyond itself owns the dev dungeon? No, I own that. It's mine. Will we ever be able to order smart gun kits as an alternative / emergency / oh shit, I lost my gun in the middle of the hive kit for specs / the CO?
I mean, CR's discussion on spec replacement guns.
Yeah, DEFCON maybe. High cargo point cost maybe. We go with a big maybe on that one. Does the holy hand grenade actually exist? Yes.
Yep, it's a actual weapon that has been like quote unquote codified. You can, admins can spawn it. It's part of one fun ERT, also spawnable by admins. You won't find it on any map. So yeah, it's for when people want to have fun.
Yeah, it's a joke weapon that is also extremely deadly. It's a giant bomb. It's hard to even get out of the blast radius when you throw it. It's just a joke. Gas mask rework incoming? ? Gas masks are pretty good at what they do right now. We might make them a little better depending on what we do with Boiler. We've had some interesting ideas for Boiler. Mostly involving its spread rate and whether or not it goes over Cades. So what we do to gas masks will be determined by what we do to boilers in recent future. Yes, that was a sentence that made sense. Here's a wild idea. Could we have it so if you cryo in the first 5 minutes of the round, you get a respawn? Say I spawn as a PFC, but we have no command staff. Could I go and fill in that gap? I doubt there's any way to abuse this. People roll for spec, don't get spec, respawn as something else. Now they're fighting over the other late join spots.
I mean, if you want to fill a spot, just don't join in at the start of the round. Wait to see who spawn in, what slots are open, and just use that. Like, I'm not really sure what are the how people abusing logging out early round. I from my perspective, I think if you roll for spec, then you've gone for your spec place, and if you don't get the spec you want, then if you go off K, I think that's how people hard quit that way, right?
I've seen. I see this going two ways, one of two ways, and I'm not sure at this very moment, off the top of my head, which way it would end up going. On one hand, if we do this, there are no real negative side effects of rolling for spec and not getting it. So now there's a whole lot more people rolling for spec because they know if they don't get it, they can just late join to something else anyway. Whereas otherwise they would be stuck with whatever other preferences they got slapped into, say, especially PFC. Not that PFC is a bad role. I play it about as much as everything else. The other thing that could happen if we do this is people roll for spec, don't get it, go back to lobby, and then they join as Xeno. Right now, and I'm the way I'm on the fence on this idea is I'm not sure how much this happens, but right now I know people will roll for spec, not get it, cryo, and then leave the round just because they didn't get spec at all. I don't think it's that much of a thing, at least among veteran players.
It's like, if you're rolling just for spec, then why would you pick any other options if you don't want to play as anything else? I guess maybe if you haven't set your preferences properly, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I could see somebody going, okay, I'm going to put spec on high and smart gunner and engineer on medium, and then they don't get it, and it defaults them to PFC. Or they have their preferences set funny and it throws them into a random roll or throws them into PFC. My answer to that one is use return to lobby if roll not available.
Or maybe they got into bad squad and they want to be alpha or something.
Yeah, the other thing that this does is it lets people self squad up a lot more. Delta will be way larger than it already is if we do this. Let me put it that way, because late joining as PFC on purpose pretty much always puts you in the squad you want. Moving on from that one. Question for you, Dean. Thanks, I guess. Will there be other armor types in the future for Marines to choose from? I assume you mean like lighter or heavier options for less or more speed, because that's pretty much how we balance armor right now, is speed against protection value. I can say we don't have any plans right now for some, but we're taking a look at how speed works, especially because of the speed mutators, and when we finish with that, we will get back to this idea. It's not a bad one. I like the idea of putting 3 or so types of armor in the PFC or the Marine vendors for you to choose from, just like you can choose pouches and belts. Could be interesting to have different kinds of armor be able to carry different kinds of weapons or something like that. So it's a good idea. Right now, there's no plans for it. It's all spitballing. Anything planned for research in the near future? Near future, as in like next month? Not really. This year? Yeah. Research is probably going to have a significant integration with DEF CON. I find that researchers often get bored in the middle of the round. It's during that period where nobody's really dying, so there's nothing to do in medbay. So they don't have anything to do. They've gotten bored playing with chemicals. If you have permission to go down, you're a role that has use on the field, as long as you clear it with your CMO or whatever. As an actual medic, Medic Plus, but you can also spend your time gathering objective items and sorting out papers and discs and stuff. That's a role that research sort of has, in that they have a big period where there's nothing for them to actually do. Bit of a stopgap, bit of a cop out, but we're even putting stuff in there later. There's a reason Xenocorpses go to research. Okay. I am out of direct questions. Carmack says I smell. I do smell nice. Thank you, Carmack. We have another 35 minutes slated for this thing we're doing. I won't call it a town hall, but it's a thing. So go ahead and send me questions if you have them, or get your feedback on ideas that you've thought out and are good. All right,
So
there we
then,
go.
when will we be getting some more big fives, maybe?
We may want to try to decide that at the dev meeting tomorrow.
Yay.
Maybe the one after that. I would like to see DEF CON get to a more complete, that the final DEF CON level, and tweaking how easy it is to actually get the objective points in. As we get to there and we're comfortable with that, and all of the other balance changes we're working hard and heavy on, we'll definitely consider some more big projects.
I do have to leave now because I'm being called. So sorry to keep.
It's all right. Have a good one, A1. Thank you for taking the helm in my absence.
A1, give me a list. Come on, man.
Question here: What will happen with the actual stage of point blanking, where you can easily hit crit due to the burns on one single PB? I assume you mean actual state of point blanking, because actors usually don't shoot each other in the face on stage. Point blanking is very much high risk, high reward, in that if you get one off, the thing you hit is probably dead, as far as shotguns go. But you're also in extreme danger just attempting it, because you're willingly going into melee with a xenomorph. And you're gonna suffer for killing something in one hit. If it becomes that much of a problem and we see it making point blanking useless, we can definitely nerf that burn damage, or at least the chance of taking that burn damage down. But, I mean, go see your medic. It's usually not enough to hard crit you. Any plans for making security more accessible? It is an awkward place, both RP-wise and gameplay-wise. Well, that would be a question for A1, because he reworks the brig, but he literally just... so we'll postpone that one. I will say probably not, because the changes were made intentionally to make the brig and CIC more defensible. It's a lot harder to mutiny or take it over as a Xeno, unless you land in it.
I'll make the changes.
Who dis?
I'm an old dude.
Oh, it's Arturus. Oh, welcome, friend. Are you going to come back to the dungeon?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm in the army now, so.
Oh, probably not. You've got your own dungeon to leave her in.
I have 5 more months of basically college.
Well, if I'm still in charge when you get out, or you find yourself with an unreasonable amount of time, come see me. We'll talk.
No, shit. I mean, I might like get. Let me hit you up at the end of February, because then I can actually have a laptop and I can, excuse me, join in possibly on the weekends.
All right, sounds good. If nothing else, I'd like to see you on the server. Oh, here's a good one. Why does the dev team have a hard stance against the reversion of code? I'm gonna let the other devs answer that one for themselves first, because we each have slightly different opinions.
Reversion of code, you mean what? Rolling back the features?
Revert this change memes, basically.
It's like, well, I guess the main issue is, people don't like change. Therefore, when changes come in, they'll complain about it, even if it's good for them in the end. So sometimes we just have to let this thing stay in for a while, and then we can have some actual conversation about it once people get to figure it out, get to see how it plays, and maybe they'll eventually like it. And then we might not need to have a discussion about reverting this code. That's the main reason, I think.
Yeah. The reason I'm against revert this change memes, for lack of a better term, is I'm aware of how we actually put these things together. Every major balance affecting feature, like mutators or DEFCON or whatever, goes through some pretty rigorous internal testing. It starts with just us, and then if it's something that needs a lot of people to test, we go and get the admin team for a bunch of testing. Sometimes we get actual players, occasionally, if we just need mass numbers. We don't have a dedicated test server, as in something that donations are paying for, but one of our devs he has a spare box, so we use that, because why not? I personally have grabbed people to show them stuff I'm working on. So we get it to a state that we think is close to being balanced. We know that anything we put in right away, we're probably not going to get exactly on target. There's no substitute for a full-on 200 some odd pop round or a 30 pop low pop round. We're very unlikely to revert something right away because people don't like it. Because we know that whatever we've done most likely has potential to stay in. That does not mean we will not revert changes later. Wait a month, however long it takes to get actual hard data on the new feature. We've been collecting stats on which mutators people take, for example. We have a whole bunch of extra stat management for win rates and minors, majors, and so on and so forth, round times, map selection rates, all kinds of extra stat and data gathering that wasn't there for some reason in the last 3 months, to make sure that what we put in is more likely to stick. But if it turns out that we've just put out a big old lemon, we're gonna squeeze it right out of the code and get it out of everyone's eyes. We've done that a couple times. I can't think of one off the top of my head in recent memory, but I do remember
Resin
doing
cuffs.
it. That was not something we got rid of. That was not something when I started playing, so I don't think I can fairly take credit for that one.
Screw you, I'm we.
Well, we did remove hardy weeds.
Yeah. What else?
And
we did something with boiler gas spread.
Yeah, the boiler gas spread chain was reverted back to where it was. We removed that mutator to let you have more T2, T3 slots. We removed stacking of mutators and so on.
Yeah, we have to try things in some state to gather feedback, even if it's overwhelmingly negative, because the best feedback we can get is, I don't like this. This thing is terrible. Here are all of the rational and well thought out reasons why. Now, I understand that if something is terrible and it makes you extremely frustrated, it's pretty hard to formulate purely rational and not profanity filled feedback. So like if you die in an infuriating way, play another round or like do something else and then come back to it. Because we're very likely to just sort of dismiss, immediate revert this. If you put a suggestion to revert something during the round that it went in for the first time, we're gonna ignore that. Because that's just obvious salt. But I think a lot of the people who I've spoken to in private and that have spoken to other devs in private about things and then immediately have seen them change, at least in some fashion, maybe not necessarily in the exact way that they thought it should change, can vouch for this here. We do pay attention. It's just all about overcoming that first hump of salt, for lack of a better term. Better question, what about the APC that was talked about? Still have plans for that? Maybe we have this whole framework of vehicle code that we only used on the tank. Vehicles are very much we've decided are going to be very much a map-driven thing. So it may be available on a map in the future. Maybe Trident Dam, maybe not. We'll have to see how the tank goes. We've had some wacky ideas for Trident specifically on getting Marines to move around quickly. I don't want to spoil it because it is too fucking funny to me. But right now, we don't plan to make it an every round thing. For the most part, it just wouldn't fit. For some reason the tank has problems, like on LV, for example. It just kind of wouldn't fit. It's too big. The maps are designed for pure infantry combat. We would have to rework most of the maps, and we're more likely to just make new ones that are entirely built around it than trying to cobble together some version of LV that the tank doesn't suck on. So,
I have a question from Alex Einsburn, as they are called in the CM Discord, and they're asking, will the Queen or Crusher sprite be reworked to match the stylistic flavor of the other Xeno sprites? And the answer to that at the moment is currently we have no plans to change the current Xeno sprites to match each other. We think that they are pretty well unified in regards to their palettes and their stylization, although they are a bit different from what we consider to be the regular CM style. But the Crusher, the Queen, Praetorian, as I mentioned, will not be changed in the near future. No, I'm sorry.
All right. The big question, according to someone, neurotoxin. Talk about it. Well, that's a statement, not a question. But I will do so anyway. I am personally in charge of working on the neurotoxin rework. I decided that was going to be my thing. It is currently waiting, like I mentioned earlier, on some changes we're doing to speed and armor. I do plan to make it so that neurotoxin is no longer an instantaneous, entirely random chance stun. I think that's stupid and not good for consistent balance. It's much easier to balance a projectile that takes multiple hits but consistently knocks someone over than it is completely random chance. I think we've all had that situation where a Praetorian on Frenzy ran in, got really lucky, and knocked down your whole squad, while a carrier put facehuggers on everyone, and they've also had that situation where they went in as an Ancient Spitter, missed 7 neuros, and died. Both situations are stupid, and I intend to make them not happen anymore. Other spitting casts will be a lot more skill-based in the future. I can't give you an ETA, because it's really complicated. And will probably require refactoring a lot of how projectiles work in general, especially how neuro works. So, current general plan, it is subject to change, but it's my thing, so I do get to spoil things about it if I choose, is to make it take some number of hits that I won't talk about specifically, and each hit will slow you down a little bit so that you're a little bit easier to hit, similar to the way that being shot by actual bullets would slow you down from pain. Until you fall over. And once you fall over, they can continue to spit at you and build up the stun duration to a certain cap. So they can't just spit on you like 90 times and then you're stunned for 15 minutes. But they would be able to, once they get you, they can keep you down in the same way that they can burn you or slash you to keep you down. For hives that are more focused on taking their time and capturing people and guarding them rather than making a giant murder death ball and killing everyone. Do you have any plans for Ice Colony? Marines would be upper, while Xenos would be lower, and it's just a waiting game until the 80 versus 30 fight at Excavations comes. No. We don't have any big plans for Ice Colony. There is the Sensor Tower, which I think we tested a couple weeks back. It's like a really big motion sensor in that it puts Xenos within a certain radius on the tactical map. Really anything that isn't a Marine. It had some weird bugs to do with it. Very weird bugs that we've worked out. I don't know when the next test will be. But
currently the branch is awaiting a refactor because someone decided to merge changes into 2 different branches, and one of them could merge and the other had conflicts. So, yeah.
Yeah. The guy who wrote it needs to come back and fix it. But that's the only plans we have for Ice Colony right now. And the Sensor Tower may become something on more apps than just Ice Colony. It's just Ice is a really good way to test. let's see here. We talked about the ABC. Okay, A1 is back. There was a thing. Oh yeah, A1. Someone asked about the brig on the Almayer and how it's really inaccessible for just moving around and RP purposes. I explained in your absence that it was made that way on purpose to make it harder to break in. I believe that was the justification. It's also just the location of the brig and the lack of ladders in it. I will admit, I see a lot of arrests happen like on the dropships during round start. People are fighting or whatever. A1 is unable to use his mic right now for personal reasons, but so I'll be translating whatever he tells me from PMs. But he says that's just the location of the brig. Like if you have to arrest someone in the hangar, or God forbid in the tank bay, or in engineering, it can take a while to get them to the brig. But the way I see it, if they're going to be a little shit, and they have to spend longer in your custody getting to the brig, well, that's just a little extra punishment.
I mean, you don't have to drag them away. You can tell them to walk. That'll be faster.
Plus, the longer some jackboot's dragging your ass to the brig, the longer he's actually playing.
Yeah. The issue with that one, Piachu, is I would say most people who actually get arrested and don't just go along with it because they had fun doing the thing that got them arrested in the first place would just run away the instant you let them go. Entirely to make you waste more time chasing them down.
Taser in the back.
Which does give the MP more things to do. When will we be able to chokeslam a runner to death? When you become bulk squat huge, galactic wrestling champion. In seriousness, probably not. There's a reason why you can't drag Xenos. Unless they're
Become a
dead.
predator. Maybe.
Yeah, go apply for Pred Whitelist. You can't choke them out, but you can drag them around. Will we ever get a double burst fire assembly? No? Why would you? You're not going to hit anything. They decrease accuracy. What were the factors behind the auto-clicker ban? Okay, that one was entirely my decision, and I still stand behind it. I believe that everyone should be limited to the input options that the game provides, whether that's macros, buttons on the screen, whatever. Entirely because I am fully aware of what AutoHotkey can do. I use it at work and in my private life all the time. It is an extremely powerful tool that most people can't make use of. You need to know how to write the script to use it. And similar applications other than AutoHotkey that just do automatic clicks. But if we openly permitted third-party input tools, it would be like macros, but way worse. And I can't allow people to have an unfair advantage just because they're familiar with a specific semi-obscure tool. Will squad orders, move, hold, focus, ever be made easier to use? I might make it so that you can macro them directly. They may become passive effects based on how close you are to your squad leader. These are things we might do.
For a long while, I've been thinking about making them actual buttons that appear on the screen, but I'll have to figure out how to do that. The button on the screen code isn't that friendly for developers.
Yeah, UI buttons are really gross. Partly because I'm so familiar with command line stuff, I do prefer just having verbs that I can macro. I know a lot of people do really use macros, a lot of people don't use them at all, so I would want to have a UI option for it. But there's people who play and do reasonably well that just use like WASD and the mouse, and that's it. Which I find completely crazy. Monkey does that, but and somehow he kills things better than I do.
Arrow keys for life, motherfucker.
Fuck if I know, man. He plays it like old school Doom style, but for the rest of us who can't maneuver the mouse that quickly and accurately, I use macros. Can we shoot the synth as a free OB? I assume you mean firing the synth out of a railgun, which there's a lot of logistical problems with that, so probably not. Machete buff. No. It's really good. Like really good already. It has a specific role. It's not for killing Xenos in melee directly, although you can do that if they're already weak.
It's also ungodly if you combine it with the underbarrel flamethrower.
It can be
Well,
pretty good for that.
Just go find a predator, kill them, take their sword, and there, machete buff.
But the main role that Machete has, that people do use it fairly often for, is one-shotting resin nodes and getting rid of like the nodes that weeds spawn out of, because those can take a few hits from a knife instead of a one hit on a normal weed, and clearing sticky resin, especially thin sticky resin. A guy up front with a machete with a smart gunner behind him, pretty effective at getting to a choke point, especially if you've got some fire to help him. So I think its use as a tool for cutting things, not as a direct Ungo weapon, is pretty good. And besides, we already have the best melee weapon in the game. It's called shotgun. Has any staff member ever been banned while staffing? Not my team, and not since it's been my team. But, like, that wouldn't be a question if it happened. So, because that kind of thing usually spawns a lot of drama, which I try to avoid like the plague. Because much like the plague gives me tumors and boils on my skin. Is A1 secretly the co-dungeon owner? No. It's mine. I am the dungeon master. Any chance of researchers getting to research things to do again? Yes. Wait, we already discussed that one, so I'll just leave that one as a yes.
Yes, eventually.
It's absolutely. Any thoughts on enabling macroable verbs for Xenos? I assume you mean like pounce and weeds planting and stuff like that. I will say that I hated it when they went away, but that's because I really like macros. In the current state of things, I don't think it would negatively affect balance to do so. So, yeah, maybe. One of the reasons they were taken away is because the actual verbs were written so badly that you could type pounce into the command bar and then follow it up with an actual argument to pounce on someone without having to actually click on them. That is gone, and was gone before macros were taken away, but that was apparently the actual justification for it originally, like 2 years ago when it was taken away. So, it's actually probably just last year, but boy, has it been a whirlwind of a time. What, though, in your opinion, is the addition/update to the game that you're most pleased with since you are joining the dev team? That's a good question. I may not answer this one because I have so many that I like, and I don't want to be seen publicly playing favorites with my devs. Everyone gets a beating in the dungeon, just as hard as everyone else.
I personally really like the synth vendor because you don't have to go around asking every single place whether you can take something and then not getting a response because nobody responds to you, poor synth. So yeah, I think that's the best thing that has been included since I was in the devs.
I guess at risk of sounding conceited, since I'm the one that did it, but the biggest thing for me was E, quick equip. Being able to put stuff in your backpack or whatever when you push E is such a big thing that we just didn't have forever. Because like APOP didn't play and things like that. So that's... I don't have to pick favorites if I pick me, I guess. There we go. That's an answer that I can get away with without just not answering the question. Try, what was yours? What's your favorite update? If not, since joining, just in the last, 3 months.
I don't know. Because, I kind of played consistently for about 3 weeks before putting a developer application in, because I'd recently switched servers. Favorite thing that I've seen go in? Yeah, no, I can't really recall. I don't know. I was pretty happy when those ID cards I made got put in.
Yeah, there we go. Let's just all pat ourselves on the back. We all did a great job. Yeah,
exactly.
we're great.
I haven't been paying much attention to what the other developers have been actually what has actually been merged. I know what's planned, but I haven't seen too much change in the game. I do actually like I do know the week where the M39 was king. I love the ammunition update, but then the M39 sucked again when Neth changed it, or maybe it was A1. I don't know. That was really fun, but I really like the ammunition update.
Okay. When are we going to have a decent squad beacon that doesn't lead you away from the squad leader? That is actually a weird Beyond problem. It's a symptom of the same reason why alt-clicking a tile to see what's on it doesn't update quickly. It's part of the changes that went into that. I talked to BMC about it, because he was in charge when that change had to go in. And he explained that the stat panel was nerfed because of Beyond limitations. It was updating and the contents of every variable of every item in that tile, which doesn't seem like a lot at first until you consider that most things you can manipulate in the game have a few dozen variables, and it sits there and checks that they all exist and what their state is for a few dozen items on that tile, including all the items that are contained in those items. It's a very weird problem that Beyond devs haven't really done anything with yet. I'm working with BMC every once in a while on Beyond specific stuff. He's active on the Beyond forums and is helping make the platform better in his free time. And we might see a better squad beacon that either uses a completely different system or one that just fixes that and alt-clicking this year. My answer to that one is probably this year, maybe next 6 months. Okay. Question. More like a suggestion. Well, that's not a question, but I'll talk about it anyway. Buffing the pull speed for MP. You are already allowed MP to strip everything from someone at once for quality of life purposes. How about letting MP get people to brig faster for the same reason? Maybe. I think it would be really funny if we let MPs or anyone with high CQC skill, whenever they net grab someone, to put them in like a fireman's carry and just haul them down the fucking tileways. Like,
Yeah, you can always
pick
add
them up.
it to the delay code to check your skill and move things based on that.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah, it's a good GitLab suggestion. I might make it so that it's fireman carry, because it's really funny to have an MP like walk up and hit someone on the head with his bloody stun club and then grab them and throw them over his shoulder and just walk off. That's really amusing to me in my mind's eye. But will we be seeing bulk squat huge reappearing? Well, it can be said that bulk squat huge can be summoned when I'm online and also people are making an ungodly amount of noise with cargo containers. So maybe try that. Maybe don't. It's a possibility. You know, the actual ritual for summoning bulk squat huge from his wrestling throne is not something that I can clearly tell. It's arcane knowledge that not everyone should have access to. But there's a chance. There's a good chance. How much do you think high ping, say 150 to 300 milliseconds baseline, affects players in a game like CM? Is there anything a player can do to mitigate that effect?
Play roles that require low ping.
Don't download stuff in the background. We had a guy A-Help. I won't give names, but we had a guy A-Help the other day who said, "Man, I've got this crazy ping," and the mentor that responded was, "Well, what do you have running in the background?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, I've got 30 tabs of stuff open downloading things. Let me fix that." Okay, never mind. Problem solved. So, manage your downloads. If you are in control of your router at home and it is shared, there are ways to limit how fast other people can leech stuff from you. So like if you've got flatmates or roommates in college, or if you're a kid and you live with your parents and you don't have control over your router, that just kind of sucks to be you. But otherwise, if there are like 4 people streaming Netflix in maximum resolution on separate PCs, that's gonna impact you a little bit. If you live in Australia, there's not a lot you can do about that, other than maybe stop living in Australia, because ping sucks for Australians just kind of universally, because there's that whole ocean problem to deal with. Besides that, there's not a lot you can do. A small amount of ping is server-side. Every few seconds, veteran players will know what I'm talking about here. Every few seconds, there's a minor lag spike. So if you do .ping constantly, you'll see, normal ping and then just a sudden spike. That's about 10 times as much as you already had for a bit. I know I go from 0.005 ping to like 0.05, 0.07 ping on these little spikes. That's because every time the life cycle processes, every time everyone's mob, every human, every Xeno checks all the things that they have to check, like if they're dead, if they're alive, if they're being healed, chemical processing, all the little things, breathing, all of that happens for everyone at the same time. So that will throw off your ping measurements a little bit. There's nothing you can do about that one. Other than that, just manage your downloads and better internet connection. Don't live in Australia if you can help it, I guess. There's nothing wrong with Australia other than the fact that they're across an ocean from everyone. Another question. Is being treated by a medic a privilege or a right? For example, if you beat up a medic early in the round and then die, do they have to revive you? That is not a question for me. That is a staff question. That is a rules moderation question. I have no idea. That is entirely in my personal opinion. Oh, he's clarified. In my personal opinion, that's a privilege. If you're a fuck and you FF your team horribly, I'm not going to blame a medic for not healing you whenever you go HCFA your whole squad, because now you made a shitload of work for him. I'm not going to blame him for treating you last and then, oh no, I guess I have to abandon this guy to the Xenos because we're retreating because we all got IB. But that's a rules question, man. That's not my domain at all. Beyond that, also I have tried to get into coding a lot of times, but each time I have a roadblock. How did you start? I mean, like, by the objective standards of how good a coder can be, because it's a very objectively rateable thing, I'm the worst on the team. That was done on purpose. There are 2-3 people on the team with master's degrees, and then there are people who are getting degrees in the field they're just better qualified than me, and that's why you see their names in the changelog way more than mine. But I started young. I started fiddling with it late middle school. Took years of courses in high school. The big roadblock that I've seen from most people, and from my experience at least, is the bare fundamentals, the philosophy behind it, the idea of how code works, how to read it, and so forth. Once you've reasonably mastered a language, you can get any other one. I will say that anyone can learn to code decently. It doesn't matter how old you are. Absolutely anyone can learn to code, but it does take time. It takes time, it takes effort, it is a skill. Anyone can learn it, but not everyone has the time or the dedication to do so. There are fabulously effective resources out there. I can post a link to something that I look at from time to time just to know what I need to work on. I post it often for everyone who tries to learn. It's overkill for CM, but it's a resource that I've seen people use and have had recommended to me when I want to improve, for teaching yourself code from like I know nothing to I could feasibly get a degree at a university without any effort. So just a moment to go look that up while I field some more questions. Sure.
Cool. To anybody who just needs to know like the fundamentals, like I can code a little. I have enough knowledge to modify and implement more of the same. There's this program out there called Scratch. It's free. It's plug and play. There's no actual typing in it. And it teaches you the very building blocks of how code flows and how it works. At the very least, you'll be able to half-ass read some of it.
In Scratch, other visual, object IDEs, self-learning languages, they're great. There's W3 Schools that has all kinds of information on how to do stuff. Khan Academy has some stuff on mathematics and coding. And then there's this one, which I'll post in Town Hall text. Teach Yourself CS. It itself is not a resource on how to learn computer science, it is a resource for obtaining resources. It suggests a very heavy workload that you don't necessarily need all of, in the order of 100 to 200 hours of study on 9 topics, which that's a lot of time, but you don't have to do that much to code for CM, God forbid. But if you want to make a career out of it, that's a place to start if you don't have access to higher education.
I guess in general, if you want to learn how to code or what have you, like if you figure out the tools, give yourself some small goals, some small projects to accomplish. Like, oh, I want to have a program that prints into, the command line. Figure out, focus on that, figure out how it does. Don't try to do anything big at the start. Small steps, iterate from there. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much like how people can learn how to code in CM once they have the basic understanding. Like, well, start with something, figure it out, and continue on. Work from there.
To more directly answer the question, like in an absolute fashion, I got started modding Halo 3. This is where I started. I was a wee lad, fucking 10, 11 years ago. So, modding stuff, not having to do the creative and design process on something wholly, is a great way to start, because it leads you to teach yourself enough to read what exists, understand what someone else has done, and then figure out how it works piece by piece and modify it and play with it. I modded all kinds of games that I played. I still mod stuff that I play just to see what I can do with it. It's all... God, there's so many games that you can get into. I would not recommend starting with Skyrim, although it has very popular mods.
Do Kerbal Space Program, I guess.
Kerbal, Gmod is a great place to start because it's clunky and weird, but very powerful. Like, just find a game you like, see if it has a modding community. Most modding communities have a resource page somewhere on how to start modding in it. Play with stuff. Tinker. Explore. Don't let it overwhelm you because there's all kinds of practices and stuff that you don't know. You're not going to learn those without trying them and failing anyway. Running low on questions and also on time. It is 8 p.m. I just noticed. That was the appointed time to go ahead and close this thing down. Very conveniently, I am out of questions. So, yeah, that was... It's 8 p.m. in Central Standard Time, Texas time, which is the only time that matters. Beyond that, though, I will be closing off Town Hall text now, so shitpost wildly for the last few seconds you have to save your shitposting lives. 3, 2, 1, folks. You got some real poor response time on that one. You have to kick that up. But yeah, that was I think a productive bit of questions. I feel like we got some answers out there that people really wanted to know. Things like the body block, especially future plans. Any more suggestions that you guys have, bugs to report, whatever. GitLab. I would say PM a dev that's open to it, but please don't, because I won't have time to answer them all individually. You guys put out way more ideas than we can handle on a individual basis.
You can PM me and I'll send you an answer in no way grounded in fact.
Yeah.
I'll be Dean spam mail. Let's do it. Fuck it.
If you want to send Monkey your suggestions, apparently you can do that. I wouldn't expect anything. He might just fuck with you.
Might. Who do you take me for?
That's it. It's closed. You guys can go home. It's over. Party's over. Show's done. That's